Big idea I'm pulling from the courses is that you judge the effectiveness of a PLC based on results. You judge the effectiveness of a team based on results. So for me, those results need to be student achievement in our business. So I frequently found that I came to schools and I would look at goal setting, and the goals weren't set with student achievement outcomes. So I met with a school that said, well, our goal for this year is all the teachers will complete this training and implement this strategy in their classroom. So then I suggested to them, that sounds to me like a strategy. It's a strategy to achieve some goal. And I'm guessing the goal is some kind of change in student performance. And now, actually, I just worked today with 2 schools that made our goal for this year a change in teacher behavior, because our goal for the following year is a change in student achievement. In other words, when we looked at what the data is today and what we're working on, we probably don't have a significant enough time for this particular change that we're looking at to bring about, to measure it by student achievement. But we could measure it by the fact that the teacher's behavior has changed. Okay, and then we'll set next year our goal of looking at the change in student achievement. So in the previous session I did with the reading folks, and all the work I've done with the coaches and administrators was built on this picture. You're planning backwards from student achievement. Okay? So you decide, we want to get a change in students' writing performance. It means we have to change what kids' behaviors are about writing that produces this writing performance. So then we have to change what teachers are doing in the classroom with kids in order to get this behavior change, in order to get this. So then we have to say, what are we going to do with professional development? What's the role of school leadership to support teachers in this process? So while I plan this way, I implement this way. Okay. So we're implementing the writing process, and we think we can get this far. Maybe we can get to the start of this, and then looking on to, as a 2-year goal, now we'll have this in place, and by the end of the second year, we're looking for pieces here. So when I got to schools, I was finding 2 things happen. I was finding a whole lot of teachers who were teaching with no goals. They were just starting and running. They were teaching as fast as they could, as hard as they could. But then when the assessment comes, whatever the assessments are, they're acceptable. See, since I never set a goal for that proficient kid to become advanced, the fact when I gave the assessment he scored proficient, it was okay. But if you come back to this spot where I set the goal that that student was going to score advanced, and now we get halfway through the year and get the benchmark results, he's not on track to hit advanced, I've got to change my instructional strategy. I can't get to where I want to go doing what I'm doing. If we haven't written down the names of the kids who are going to move from level 2 to level 3 this year, if we don't have those kids' names down on paper, if all we've got down on the paper is we're going to change our percent of proficient from 82 to 87, but we don't know who those kids are, when the assessments come back, we don't have a way of measuring ourselves against that goal. So I'm in some schools where teachers had no goals. Then I was in other schools where instead of goals, they had dreams. 100% of our students will score proficient next year. Really? That kind of doesn't sound like a goal to me. Nobody's planning up front to meet it. Why would you set a goal that nobody's planning to meet? I'm working in a high school in Texas. What's the goal? 100% of the kids will pass the state's end of course exam in Algebra 1. I said, really? Really? Tell me about the student who will be most challenged by that. Well, I have a young man who speaks no English and has no math background. Yeah, I'd say that's not a real good goal for that kid, you know? So you want the kid to fail and the teacher to fail before we even get started. You got to set a goal. So finally we set a goal for that kid. I love the goal we set. He will pass Algebra 2 the second time. That's the goal we set. I'm sorry, he'll pass Algebra 1 the second time he takes it. That's the goal we set. Now, if you're his teacher this year, how does that break out to a goal for you? Well, that kid must spend this year learning enough English and learning enough math, and here's the most critical part, having a strong enough self-esteem and determination to come back and sign up for this course a second time. To me, that's a hell of a goal. And it's an awesome teacher who will sign on to it. Huh? Sit down with the kid? Yeah. You and me together. We'll fail. So you can pass it next year. Let's go get it. Huh? It reminds me of the gymnastic coach my daughter had. For some reason, my daughter is an unathletic child. Well, I'm sorry, was an unathletic child. Okay? And somehow she gave birth to a swimmer. I don't know how this happened. Okay? But my daughter loves sports. Okay? Like she just loves softball as long as they didn't put her in. Every time they sent her out in the field, she got disappointed. I was sitting there talking with my two friends, and they put me in. And when they put me in, I'm out in center field. There's no one out here talking. My daughter, she loved gymnastics. And your daughter, you've all been to those parent events you have to go to? Huh? It's a 3-hour gymnastic thing. Your child is on stage for 5 minutes, but you got to spend 3 hours on a Sunday afternoon. And I remember I went to this thing, and these kids came out, and some kids were, they're twisting and jumping and all. And my daughter comes out and does a forward roll. You know? After 2 years of gymnastics, and it was so neat because at the end, all the parents were standing in line to talk to the coach, you know. And I waited my turn out and said, "Ma'am, I just want to say you must be one of the most outstanding coaches around." And she looked at me like, "Mr. Barkley, I understand some of the other parents being excited about it." And I said to her, anybody who could keep a kid coming out for 2 years at her rate of progress, you've got to be one heck of a coach. And I'm guessing she was goal-driven. I'm guessing that coach said, this child will do a forward roll before the year is over. So here's the example I gave the coaches and the administrators when I worked with them. This is a school I worked with. These are fifth grade teachers. This just happened to be math. But the 5th grade teachers at the beginning of the year sat down and they looked at the 4th grade students' end of year results. And these were the 4th grade students at the end of 4th grade. And having spent 2 weeks with the kids, having talked to the 4th grade teachers, the 5th grade teachers set these as the end of 5th grade goals. So they said these 6 kids, for first question they asked, they went over to the 4th grade teachers. We're doing goal setting. Were there any miracles in this group? And the 4th grade teachers, no, they all belong. So I said, okay, well, those 6 kids, they'll come over here. Now we're going to take a look at this 30 kids. Looking at the results, we picked 9 of those kids that we believe can make more than a year's worth of growth. So instead of moving those 9 kids from proficient to proficient, we're going to move those 9 kids to advanced. Similarly, they looked down here and they said 9 out of these 10 kids, they were going to get proficient by the end of that year. Now, what's critical is at the end of this meeting, when the minutes went to the principal from their PLC meeting, the names of these 15 kids were listed. The names of these 30 kids were listed. I was just working with a, very interesting, I'm working with a middle school these last 2 days, a whole series of them, where there's 3 teachers who teach 6th grade reading. And we set up a process where these 3 teachers set the goals, the reading goals for all 6th grade kids. And when they set the goals for all 6th grade kids for the end of the year, all 3 teachers sign, meaning we're all going to be accountable for that. Then, the 6th grade teachers, went to the reading department with their goals. And the reading department is made up of the 7th and 8th grade and 6th grade reading teachers. They have reading teachers in their school through 8th grade. Kids have reading as a separate subject. They have English at 8th grade, and they have reading at 8th grade. These teachers had to present their goals to the department. So now the 7th grade was able to have a discussion with the 6th grade teachers if they thought they hadn't set some standards high enough in order for them to make progress with the kids. And then the head of the reading department had to go to the school leadership team, which was made up of the heads of each department and the administration, and they presented the 6th grade goals for those kids. This is the way your numbers come. So I was asking, is there a way that this, for you, whoops, makes sense for setting goals? And when I studied it with some people today, am I right? These are proficient? What's the label you put on these?
Strategic or
So is this tier 2?
Yeah.
Is this tier 2?
Yeah.
So you guys work with these kids,
Yeah.
okay? But you're not working with this kid. Okay? But it struck me, whatever this kid needs is a lot more like what this kid needs than it is what these kids need. So then I thought, God, does that mean you're off somewhere planning a lesson plan for this kid and somebody else is planning a lesson plan for this kid? Seems to me like there's a shot for a team there.
Except for the Title I laws.
Yeah.
But we can take the 11
Are you
and
kidding
13
me?
together.
Are you telling me that if this Title I teacher put her lesson plan on a wiki, this teacher went on and took it off of there, that they'd file a federal
Oh,
complaint
they could
against
do
you?
that, they could do that.
Oh, they could do that.
They
Oh,
could do
okay.
that.
Okay.
Absolutely, great idea. That we
Okay.
can do.
Or if this teacher taped herself doing an activity with kids, we couldn't let this kid watch the tape later on?
Sure.
See, then it jumped to me, same thing when I was hearing you read. See, here's what I heard. Here's what I gotta tell you, this really, I love this. Reading specialist, cannot. Reading specialist, totally responsible. Or, reading specialist cannot, then special ed teacher wants to know why is she here. Reading specialist cannot, and I got teachers scratching their heads. Okay, so understand it, the biggest game you gotta play, what the building principles, just so you know. You have to come as close to breaking these laws as you can without getting in trouble. Can you erase that part of the tape? No, actually, I knew she was taping it. That's why I said as close as you can get. Had the tape not been running, I would have said something else. Okay?
I think we're there anyway.
So here's my issue. To what extent has the principal been given? And I got to tell you, folks, several of the schools I've worked with, they're setting their school goal of decreasing the number of these kids. So if their school goal is to decrease the number of these kids, it means we have to have the names of the kids who will be moved from there to here during this year. So is that name in writing? And how many people have signed that they're assuming responsibility for that goal? Let me stop. Take some time with it. What's happening?